Welcome to the Lead with Your Soul podcast. I'm Michelle Wright, your host and fellow traveler on this journey of self-discovery. This podcast is designed for women navigating life transitions and yearning to embrace their true selves. I'll be sharing my personal journey from navigating the complexities of divorce and blending families to reshaping my career to something that resonates with my soul. With 3 decades as a teacher and mentor, I'm here to share insights, heartfelt stories, and practical strategies. Together, we'll explore how to cultivate self-love and create the vibrant, fulfilling life you deserve. Join me each week as we dive deep into the art of living authentically. Welcome to the Lead with Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Wright. Today, I have a dear friend and special guest, Charlene Sexton, from down under in Australia, is with us. We both were moving into transitions at that time. I know I sure was. I took this course from Colette Baron-Reid on how to read oracle cards, and it was called Personal Mastery. That was in 2017. In the Personal Mastery course, it was learning more deeply how to connect to your intuition and how to read cards, the questions to ask, and how to connect with the cards. The second course that she held was Shared Wisdom. It was in Shared Wisdom that we were connected with 2 other people. For me, that was Charlene and Suzanne. We were learning how to read with each other. So for about half of a year, I was reading for myself. I really started to understand the rhythm of the cards, how that was going with my emotions and my transitions. Then when we did Shared Wisdom, as soon as you start reading for other people, I think some of the surprising things were how accurate it was. The cards, in so many ways, we used to have this saying, you can't make this shit up. Because it was like, oh my goodness, that card was exactly what that person might have been thinking or feeling or moving through that week. What did you find, Charlene?
Yeah, it was a fascinating experience. I remember when it first came up in the course and they said, we're going to put you into groups and you have to read for other people. And I so didn't want to do it. I was like, I'm not ready. I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to, I won't know anything. Anyway, and I remember, I think we were all a bit reluctant. We were emailing each other, trying to figure out a time because you're in Canada, Suzanne was in York, and I'm in Australia, which means I'm in the future. So just trying to find that time was sort of a battle to start off with. But yeah, I remember that first call and we got on and I was so nervous. Anyway, we just went for it. And luckily for us, we just clicked. Like, I think the cards really helped to, we sort of got into some really nitty-gritty stuff really quickly with the cards. Like, it really went into, what was going on inside us and brought that out to light. And then when we connected on those levels and we all understood each other. I think early on there was even quite a few times when we would read cards and we would end up crying because it was just so accurate. Then we learned how to use them to help each other. And it was a fabulous time. I really enjoyed it. And I think, it was a big transition time for me at the time, and that's why I went looking for the course and just looking for that support. I definitely found it with Michelle and Suzanne, and here we are 7 years later and we're still doing it. So it's great.
Oh, yes, we're still doing it. And I think, what was so interesting, because you're right, we became this community. We didn't have to continue, but we just kept on meeting every month. And then throughout the 7 years, we started exploring different things. Each one of us would move into something else or say, I took this course or I tried this or I read this. Suzanne really got into astrology and taught us a lot about it. So we would take astrology courses with her. She was just out of the park. For myself, I moved more into tarot and oracle cards, and you really started moving into Moonology and the phases of the moon.
Yeah, it really fascinated me. I think I've always had an attraction towards the moon. I remember even before doing this course, I used to quite often when there was a full moon, drive up to the mountains nearby me just to watch it rise. So I think there was definitely always an interest there or some sort of connection to learn that that connection is actually valid and that there's a reason for it, how the moon actually does influence us and does have a very strong connection as far as the cycles and things that we go through down here. Fascinating. So yeah, I still love oracle cards and tarot cards as well. And I think that can support us in lots of different ways. I think we pushed each other into different areas, which was fantastic.
It really was. And for some of our listeners, you may be wondering what happened to our beautiful soul sister, Suzanne. And unfortunately, about 2 years ago, our beautiful soul sister just transitioned into another part of existence. And it was a hard transition for you and I in
Yeah,
dealing with the
very
grief of
difficult.
losing such a close friend. But for you and I staying connected and knowing that even as we sit here today, we have Suzanne sitting here with us, cheering us on and just going, you
Yeah.
go, girl, you go, girl. I know in my first episode, I was talking to the listeners and just making one of the things was saying, when you're going through transitions, it's really, really tough. And it can be difficult knowing where you want to be because you don't actually know who you are. You're kind of in that liminal space of where you've been and where you want to go. Finding networks, finding people that you can connect with. I know for myself, I have found people through courses. So this is one way. I just want to let people know that you can start to connect with people and build community and find some really good connections. I will in the show notes put some of the communities that I'm currently in. Maybe Charlene might as well. Those might be ones where you might find connections and support as you move through your own transitions. Charlene, you're going to talk to us about the moon cycles that are coming up in the next couple of weeks, month.
Yeah, so I thought I'd start off just talking a little bit about Moonology and an interest in the moon and sort of just reminding people that you've probably already looked up in the sky at some stage and been absolutely bedazzled by a full moon, or, you see lots of photos. Maybe you're lucky enough to have seen it real live where you'll see the moon and the reflection on the water and just how utterly stunning that can be. And it does evoke an emotional response. It's a really good feeling thing. So I guess what I want to talk about is how we can use some of the phases of the moon to keep us on a little bit of a path and give us an opportunity every single month to have a look at different areas of our life and different ways that we can focus on things. We can do manifesting with the moon. But I think just in general, if we look at the new moon and the full moon, they occur every 2 weeks. So once a month we have a new moon, once a month we have a full moon. Sometimes we have more. And every time we have a new moon, it's a new opportunity for us to start again. You can let go of things that have happened in the past and really focus on what you want to do in the future. That's the sort of thing I thought we'd talk about. We're just talking about the different phases of the moon and how they mirror actually the changes and transformations that we go through, especially as women. Women have had a long connection with the moon, that dates right back through history. They used to navigate by the moon. They, would also harvest and plant their crops by the moon. And women were the ones that, had the connection. Probably led to a lot of other issues for women back in those days that we won't go into. So whether you're stepping into a new chapter, like after a divorce, an empty nest, or, you're finding yourself a career shift, the moon can offer you, if you want to pay attention to it, some wisdom to actually guide you through those things. It's no coincidence that when we do look up into the moon, we do have that sense of awe and stillness. With the ever-changing phases, it reflects so much of what we experience in life, not only our menstrual cycles, but just the cycle of growth, release, and renewal that we seem to go through all the time. We always have these changes. But the moon doesn't shine on its own, though. We've got to remember that we only see the moon because of the sun. The moon and the sun have this beautiful dance of harmony and balance that they offer to us. That gives us some ideas in how we can balance our life as well. The sun represents a really yang sort of energy, obviously, like it's vitality. It helps things grow. It keeps us alive. It keeps us warm. It gives us light. Without the sun, we wouldn't be here, obviously. So, and that's what it represents for us. It's, our sun sign is what we show to the world. So it's our outward expression, it's our ambitions and our confidence, and it relates to all those sorts of things. It also shows us the light that we can bring to other people as well. It reminds us of the potential for us to actually shine brightly so that we can lead and we can create other things. And then as the day gives way to night, then there's the other side of our existence. And this is what the moon represents. And why I fell in love with it. The moon embodies such a yin energy, it's very quiet, it's introspective. She speaks to our emotions and our intuition and the inner truths that we keep hidden. It's the real us. It's a fantastic relationship between us and the moon. But is it us and the moon, or is it us with ourselves? It's us actually coming to the realization of, so for me, I'm a business owner and I'm very out there and I'm a leader. I'm still very emotional behind the scenes. I wear my heart on my sleeve. A lot of people don't see that part of me because, it's the part that we keep hidden.
I was thinking about that, and I really resonate with that. I know as I was going through my divorce and then even beginning to transition into believing that I could be in a new relationship, one of the things that I had a mentor at that time using cards, and she was really just saying to me, Michelle, you are a warrior. You have had to use your warrior spirit. So it just reminds me of that sun, vitality, yang energy, that really pushing energy. She says, you have used that successfully in your career and in your life to get you where you are today, right? Like it's helped you. It has
Yeah.
really helped you. But you're now wanting to move into a different area. She was saying to me, you really need to look at your feminine. You need to look at that moon, that softer energy, that yin energy. I found that in the beginning actually quite challenging because it seems in some ways when you're used to being in that vital, I'm going to just be doing, that yin of going deep within yourself, of discovering who you are and your softness and loving this softness of who you are and trusting that you are safe in this feminine softness. It was an important transition and successfully allowed me to, be open and open to a new relationship. Your story there really resonated with me because that was a huge piece. Moving from the sun to that moon energy was an essential part of me being able to heal enough and have hope enough that I could stay in that feminine, beautiful energy and connect with another human.
I think it's a really interesting part for your audience in particular. We're talking about women that are going through these transitions. And, women always have to be so strong. We've always got to be so dependable. I think we forget that we have this absolutely beautiful inner world, our intuition and our thoughts and the love that we can bring to the world, really connecting to that in those times where you do feel vulnerable. I think really important. And looking up at the moon, if you can look at the moon as often as possible at night, the last thing before you go to bed, peep out the window. Can you see her up there? Then you just know you've got that connection with her, and it does bring you closer to your inner world as well. And it's vital for women to understand that because we have to fill that cup of our own love and nurture so that we can be those strong, forceful, determined women that the world needs us to be. But we have to nurture this other side of us. So it shows that together, the sun and moon just remind us of the importance of that balance. The sun and the moon couldn't live without each other either. And the connection that they have, like, as I said, we only see the moon because of the sun. So if the sun wasn't there, we would never have a full moon because there would be nothing to reflect that light. So it's the balance between our outer achievements. So how do we go out in the world and how do we deal with people and do things, and our inner peace. So what brings us joy? What brings us inner peace? It's between action and rest. And those two things need to balance as well. And I think strong women forget that. We take a lot of action. Like you said before, we're doers. We're always out there. But the rest is so important for us to refill that cup and to revitalize our energy stores, if you like. It's like charging us up, to give us that energy to go out there and have another go. And it's also the balance between who we are in the world and who we are when no one's looking.
Oh, powerful. So powerful, right?
Yeah, I think so. For our listeners, one thing you can do, and you might want to write this down and do it later on, but just take a moment to really consider right now the balance in your own life. So have a think about, how do you shine your light for the world to see? Like, what is it that you're doing out there? And a lot of you will be really proud of what you've achieved and how you're respectful and you help people and you're in service and things like that. But then I want you to now think about, how do you nurture the softer, quieter parts of yourself that crave care and attention as well? So how do you nurture yourself? And I think you'll probably find that a lot of people, the answers will surprise you, because I don't think we nurture ourselves as well as we should.
Oh, I completely agree with that. I think especially as women, I think there's a narrative that is present where we think that if we're nurturing ourselves, then we're not being enough. And I know in my work with women, I often say to them, we know the like and the loves and everything that the people we serve, what they like and love. We know all of it. And if we start to look at ourselves, we actually at times have a hard time identifying what really brings us joy, what really brings us peace, where are we the happiest. We have a hard time taking the time and then actually knowing our inner world. I would agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so true. And this is where the phases of the moon can help us. Before we go into that, I just want to have a brief discussion about how the moon's presence actually does influence here on Earth. Most of you will understand that it's the moon's gravitational pull that is responsible for our tides. Just as the moon orbits the Earth, its gravitational force pulls the water in different directions, and it creates high and low tides. So you've got this beautiful flow that's going on all around the world that the moon actually creates. So it's this rhythmic dance between the Earth and the moon. That, to me, is also a powerful reminder of how actually interconnected we are. Like, the Earth is so connected to the moon when you think the moon's so far away, and yet it can have such an influence on our tides. And the tides are vital. They're so important for the Earth that they take water into different places that wouldn't be there, and then they take it away again. Just that lovely flow. And one of my favorite things to do is just go and sit in the beach and just watch those waves just roll in. And I'm sure many of you, feel the same. But next time you go, just really, think, wow, that's the moon that's creating that beautiful. Just as the moon affects the oceans, it does have a subtle influence on our bodies and our emotions as well. You hear people talking about it all the time, that they feel heightened emotions or restlessness during different phases of the moon, particularly during the full moon. We've all heard the stories. If you've got doctors and nurses and friends, they always say, the crazies come out at the full moon. But why is that? What is the connection there that makes people actually behave in a different way in a full moon? I find it really interesting. Science hasn't really got a definitive proven cause for that, but the idea that the full moon's bright light and gravitational pull can actually stir something within us resonates with a lot of people. I think we all have different feelings at different times of the moon phases. So I think that's really interesting, the actual influence that the moon has. And another thing that I love to see, and always makes me smile, is this phenomenon where sometimes we actually see the moon during the day. I know my son said to me the other day, when the moon was out and we could see it during the day, we were going down the street, and I was like, look, there's the moon. He's like, why is the moon out? It's daytime. It's fascinating. But that obviously happens because the moon's orbit is actually elliptical. It's not perfectly round. Pardon me. So that allows it to be visible at different times of the day. It's just the sunlight reflecting on the moon. So sometimes it aligns so that we can see it during the day. I love seeing the moon during the day. I think it's like, oh, wow, you are still there and looking down on us. So it's a reminder to me that the moon is always present. It's constant. You can rely on it. You can see it. Its cycle is absolute every month. It varies, if you're looking at our calendar according to the moon cycle, it's doing exactly what it needs. For us, sometimes, some people say it's 28 days or it's 29 days. That's just because we've attached a calendar to it. The moon knows what she's doing, and she just continues on regardless of what the dates say on our calendars. I think if we, particularly your audience, can get you to tune into the moon a little bit more, I think you'll really find some solace there, and you'll find some guidance, which I think will be fascinating. And the great thing is you do it every month. We have a new moon, as I said, every month. We have a full moon, and then we actually have the quarters as well, which we can get into at another time. So every 2 weeks, you get the chance to do something else. And every night you get the opportunity to look up in the sky and see if she's there or is she not there.
I really enjoy that piece of it. I know myself working with the moon in the sense of you're in transition and you're moving, or even just in life in general, you set goals, you're moving forward, and sometimes you want to set big goals and bite-sized goals. But having it in these 2-week increments, I have found has really helped because it's like, well, what do you want to grow right now based on your life right in this moment, based on what's happening? And then moving towards that full moon and recognizing, okay, now it's happened. And what can you now let go of? Because a new moon's going to come around again. So I have found that cycle to be very powerful.
Yeah, it gives you a great opportunity to, no matter what happened in the last month, you can let it go, and we all know that we don't want to live in the past. So, it's great to remember the good stuff, but we don't want to remember the bad stuff. And I think the cycles of the moon give us the opportunity to do that. And it reminds us all the time, like you said, when can we, wish for new things? When can we let it all go? When do we need to take action? When do we need to rest? And if we can do all of those things each month, and, be conscious of what we're thinking about and what we're doing and journaling around the phases of the moon, it just gives you such guidance and it covers all the bases. So, you don't have to, as women, we've talked about, we forget to rest, but the moon phases actually tell us when it's a good time for us to do that. So, and then we get into, the planets and how that influences, and we'll talk about that a bit more because that opens up a whole other, let's go through the phases first and then we'll go into some more stuff, which is the beginning of the lunar cycle. So as we know, when we have the new moon, we can't see her. Like there's no light reflected on the face of the moon. So it's a blank slate. It really gives us the opportunity to do whatever we want at the new moon. It's definitely a new beginning for everything. So it's really the perfect time to just pause, reflect, and then set some intentions for what it is that you actually do want to come into your life. And they can be little intentions or they can be big intentions. It doesn't matter. You just need to have a think about, what do I want to start? What do I want to be better at? Do I want a closer relationship with somebody? Do I want to care for myself more? Do I want to nurture myself more? So this is a time when we can really do that. Like I said, it's a blank slate. And it's a brand new lunar cycle. And the good thing is you don't need to get too caught up in it because next month we get another new lunar cycle. We get the opportunity to do this every month. It's not, many places where you could do that. I don't think in your job you'd be able to do the same thing every month. They'd want you to get it done. Whereas with the moon's very gentle with us and gives us the opportunity to do it again and again. It's a reminder that every ending in our life is also an opportunity for a new beginning. Whatever's gone on in the past that may have been hurtful or difficult or, part of this transition that's, difficult for all of us, depending on what they are. This is now an opportunity for a new beginning. So you can now leave that and start again. And you might still bring it forward, but you want it to be a little bit different, something that might be difficult in a relationship or with your kids or whatever. You can say, if you want that relationship to be a bit better. If you've closed a chapter, it could even be just an old way of thinking. There could be things about you, maybe you're jealous of somebody or you don't like somebody or you wish you had something, that they've got or whatever. You can just release that and then sort of say, I don't really want to think like that anymore. I don't want to be that sort of person. And we all have some of those sort of traits where we get a bit narky and a bit bitchy sometimes. It's a good time to just let that go and think about, not so much the letting go, but it's thinking about how would you like to be different in that area of your life. So what is it that you would like to do? And it's simply just a matter of, take some time and you've got opportunity either side of the new moon. So the new moon is the same for all of us. It just, the time varies a little bit. Obviously for me, we're in the future. So we get our new moon, kind of like the day after you guys on the other side, but it's always the same. It's always around about the same. And the influence of these moon phases, you've kind of got a day or two either side where, you've still got the opportunity. So don't freak out if, the new moon's on this day and you haven't written anything in your journal. Like you've got plenty of opportunity. The moon's not that, it's very gentle with us. So you can still take some time to do that, even within a couple of days after. But just have a really good think. And one of the questions that I like to journal about is, what seeds am I ready to plant now for my next chapter? So it doesn't have to be, what am I going to do? What actions? I will do this, I will do that. It's just about what seeds do you want to plant, and just think about putting those into the soil and nurturing them, and you're going to watch them grow. So it's just all about the gentleness of what seeds do you want to plant for the new moon, which is all about our beginnings.
Yes. And I really like how it can just be how you're thinking. Like it doesn't actually have to be like, I'm gonna, run a 10K or I don't know. Right? Like something
Yep.
like that. It's actually how you're thinking. And I know for myself, a huge piece this year has been really understanding the power of self-love, of filling up that self-love cup and really working from the full cup and giving everybody else from the overflow. So that's been a slow process. And it's interesting because it always comes back to the thinking. It comes back to some of these underlying ways. And then when you don't do it, is that self-compassion and self-forgiveness, right? And those all kind of entwine all three together. And it's very powerful, but it's an essential piece of thinking that helps as you move forward.
Definitely. It's about going easy on ourselves.
Yeah, it is.
And not committing to, a long to-do list. It's just about being really gentle with ourselves and just thinking about, giving you the opportunity to think about what things would you like to be a little bit different. And maybe it is just you thinking, you might just want to say, I just want to commit to following the phases of the moon, or take an interest in the phases of the moon, and try and look up at the moon more often than I've done before. It can be really simple things because, like I said, the next month you get to do it all again. So, plenty of opportunities. So that's our new moon. And then the next part, so we have the new moon, then we have the full moon. But in between that, we have what we call our quarters. And the first one of those, so just as the light's starting to come back onto the face of the moon, this is our waxing crescent. And this part of the phase, a week later, is all about our growth. So as the moon is beginning to show her light, and you can see the amount of light on the moon grows, so that's the indication that this is our growing time. And so what she's reminding us of here is just the power of taking small, really steady steps towards the intentions that we set at the new moon. So it's just about conscious, and that might be just picking yourself up on, if you do have a bit of stinking thinking, or if you're not maybe a bit short with somebody or something like that, just gives you the opportunity to say, well, hang on a minute. That was the one thing that I wanted to change. How can I do that better? It's all about the action and the growth. It can be easy to feel a bit overwhelmed about the enormity of life changes and transitions, but what you've got to remember is the progress doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be progress. You're not about making it correct every minute of the day. It's just about taking small steps. Growth doesn't happen overnight. The farmer doesn't plant the seed and then go out the next day and crack the shits because the plant's not there. He knows, he's got to nurture it, he's got to water it or whatever. And then when those little seeds do pop up, it's like, yay, here it comes. And now I've still got to nurture it because it's not, fully grown yet. So just remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It could be, you're going to sign up for a gym class, or you're going to reach out to a support group, like Michelle said. And I think that's a fabulous idea. It could be just dedicating 5 or 10 minutes a day to your own self-care, getting up maybe a little bit earlier and sitting and having a coffee or a tea or whatever it is that you like to do with your journal, or outside, or, whatever you can, even if it's just that 10 or 15 minutes, and just say to yourself, this is my self-care. It's not, don't get up and go, I've got to make coffee because I've got a million things to do and I need coffee to get me going. Really slow that down a little bit and sit at, the table or where, favorite place in your house, and really savor that coffee and, pat the cat or read a book, or just look outside, look at nature and take that in, look at the shape of the clouds. And, you see them all the time, but do we actually look up and actually take notice? So it's about, absorbing all of that energy and that wonderfulness around you, and sort of, you'll be surprised at how you actually begin to look forward to that, just having those few minutes every day. So like I say, it's about taking action, but however small that seems, it doesn't matter. So just you thinking about that you're nurturing those seeds that you planted during the new moon.
It makes me think about this podcast. This podcast has been an idea for, 2 years.
You've been talking about it for a while.
Yes. And, what's interesting is that you can sit in perfect and
Mm.
never get it done. So that's been a huge piece is that, "Oh my goodness, I don't have it all down. I'm not perfect at it." And I've really had to embrace and practice that of embracing moving forward and that good is enough because it's in good that we're gonna move forward and grow. It's in good that I'm going to actually be able to evolve and expand. And perfect actually really doesn't exist. So we know that, but sometimes that's what stalls us,
Yeah.
is trying to be that perfect. So I love that this sense is no, it's about moving from point A to point B. And it might just be a small increment, but that's what you need to celebrate is that small increment with love and compassion. Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives us an opportunity just to take those few little steps forward and see where it takes us. Yeah, it's great. So then after that, we get to the full moon. So the light grows more and more on the face of the moon. And then we come to the full moon and bang, there it is. We have this massive amount of illumination, and we know that we have super moons where the moon just looks enormous in the sky, and that's just dependent on where it is in its cycle and where you are on the earth. This is a time of illumination. So here we are, we're almost like in a sun-like energy now. We're getting into that real yang. It's a time of celebration and clarity, and it's a phase where we actually can pause to honor that progress that we were talking about just before. So, we can go, wow, in the last 2 weeks, I've signed up for a class and I did this and I did that. I didn't yell at my kids as much and, whatever it is. And you can really be thankful and grateful. Seen some of those changes happen. So we want to honor that progress and we want to reflect on the light that we bring to the world. So as the sun brings the light to the moon, what light have we brought to the world? And think back about, your favorite part of the last 2 weeks. What's something wonderful that happened, that you can really celebrate or, that really may make you feel good. So the moon also, this will also bring up some things like, it shines light on, what's no longer serving us. Have a think about that as well. It's like the light's now shining on everything in our life, and you can kind of look over and go, yeah, I'm not real, happy with that little part of my life. It could be something in your home or a relationship or whatever, something that's gone on. So it gives you the opportunity to think about what's no longer serving, and could you just let that go? Do you have to be so caught up in that all the time? Do you have to be caught up, and sometimes as women, we can be quite toxic in our friendships and things like that. Do you have to just let that friend go? Do you have to go, well, she's a drama queen and, just brings me down and, I'm not really interested. Maybe you can, not call her as often or something like that, so that you don't have that bad energy. So to, figure out ways of letting things go. Letting things go in your own thinking as well, as we've said, a lot of this is just to do with our perception of the world and how we think and how we act in it. And is there parts of us that we can now let go of that we don't need to carry around? And that could be, a bad experience or, just bad energy and just go, I don't want to feel that ickiness anymore. I want to lean more towards the light and the joy. It can be overwhelming sometimes, like the full moon can be a bit over the top and you might feel like, oh, I've got to take all this action and do all these things. But really it's just a gift. It's, that light on the face of the moon is really a gift for us and a chance to release and to make some space for what we truly align with and who we're actually becoming and celebrating that part of us that's, moving towards who we want to be and finding our joy and our authentic self. have a think about the things to think about around the full moon as what's something that you're actually ready to let go of. What can just go out of your life that, you don't need anymore? It could be something as simple as like an old belief or, a belief that you're not enough. Like that's one thing you could, definitely let go of because we're all enough. It could be a guilt about focusing on yourself. Like you said, Michelle, before, it's about, oh, I shouldn't take time out to do this or I shouldn't get my nails done or whatever, We need to let go of that guilt as well and go, no, we need to fill our cup so that we can be, honour our service to other people. Whatever it is that you can just trust that now, if you release it now, it's going to free up space, light, for your light to shine even brighter. Like we've got the brightness on the face of the moon. And if you can release that stuff, you can allow more light into your life as well. So, and then that gives you the opportunity to shine that light a bit brighter.
Yes, I know one of the things that helps me, like when I think about what to release, I will often think about like just coming right out of the center of my body in my stomach area, like just about threads that come out of me. And those might be negative experiences that have happened that week. It might be negative experiences with some people, some of the negative thinking, some of the negative habits. And I actually see it as a white line going through and just out of me. I just think of Archangel Michael and his beautiful sword. And I actually just say, Archangel Michael, please take your sword and cut all of those threads of the things that no longer serve me. And then I just imagine him using this beautiful, powerful sword that's full of light and love and just cutting all of those threads and just sending that blessing out into the universe that like universe just transmute all of that into goodness and light and allow myself to come back into me, calling in my own energy and just feeling healed. Like
Yeah.
I try to have that as one of my rituals that I do at the full moon.
Yeah, we're at the full moon. And look, that is so true. Those threads are really important. The visualization of those threads and the sword and the cutting is fantastic. And even if you don't cut them, just having those threads, follow them up to the face of the full moon and let them go into the light there, because then the moon absorbs them. The next phase, that light begins to go away. And as the light goes away, it takes all that away from you. So it takes threads as energy
Beautiful.
and minimizes those. You see the light begin to minimize, and that's what, the full moon can do as well. So, and she'll happily do it for you, send it all up there. And the moon will go, yep, no worries. I've got you, girl, and now watch me minimize all of that in your life. And it becomes not as important. So it is a fabulous time to do that. And, just having that light sitting out in the moonlight is, can be amazing as well. Nice glass of wine if you're a wine drinker, and just let the ray. It's like, we bathe in the sun. We should bathe in the moon as well, but just bathe in that moonlight, and it really has that connection to our inner self and warms the inside of it, our goodness as well. Yeah, so that's the full moon is really, really good for that. And there's lots of other things you can do, and we'll get into some more things. There's full moon ceremonies and there's ways to celebrate that. But letting go, releasing, feeling happy and proud of yourself about what you're doing, and just the clarity, like really brings really good clarity to you as well. So the next phase we have after that, we call the waning moon. And now this is when the light from the full moon, as I said, is beginning to diminish or we call it waning. So as the moon begins to wane, the light begins to really soften. So this is the time where we talk about the rest. So it's inviting us now really to slow down and reflect. And It's all about rest and integration and the things that we let go, and if we still let them go, we're not letting them sort of come back up again. Transformation doesn't always happen in constant motion. So, we need to take the time to sit and reflect and rest so that that transformation can actually be absorbed within us, so that it's your permission slip to take some time to honor the inner work that you've done. So it's a perfect time to ask yourself questions about how can you actually nurture yourself during this period? Like, what can you do? This is the time. This is really a great time to do all that self-care stuff. So if you're booking in appointments and things like that to get your hair done or whatever, is a great time to do that because it's all about you. So, if you wanted to sort of get into doing things by the moon calendar, this is a great time for haircuts and that sort of stuff, or makeovers, or shopping for new clothes. Nurturing yourself, you might want to take a really long bath. Maybe you shower all the time. Maybe, this is a time for you to take a really relaxing bath and put some bath salts in and things like that. Meditating is the time that you want to meditate, then it's the perfect time if you like. Like I said, simply just sitting out under the night sky is what does it for me. If the full moon actually comes up over the back of my house, and that's where my table and chairs are out the back, and all my animals and I, we all go out there and sit in the full moon and just, really enjoy it and watch it come up over the houses. So it's always fun. If I know it's going to be a super new moon, then I usually drive up the mountains and have a look and watch it come over the mountains because it's incredible. So yeah, whatever the rest looks like for you, this is the time for you to embrace it without any guilt whatsoever. Okay, well, so that's the end of the phases of the moon. So we've just covered a whole month. We've had our new moon, we've had our waxing, our full moon, and then our waning, and then we go back to the new moon again and we get to start it all over again. So just remember that, the beauty of the moon is that she's always there, always so dependable. If you've got Skyview app on your phone, you can look up Skyview and hold it up to the sky and it'll help you find them. It also reminds us about cycling through phases. So that reminds us that life's never stagnant. It's just this continual cycle of renewal and rebirth and resting and action. And the moon is connected to us in, with our menstrual cycles as well, very, absolutely mirrors moon cycles. So just remember that her rhythm, the moon's rhythm, can actually be yours. So you can live your life with this same rhythm by just following the phases of the moon and having to think about, what it is you need to be doing at the different phases. And the moon will make sure you cover all the bases. Like I said, you'll cover the action, you'll cover the planting of the seeds, and then taking the steps forward, and then celebrating how fantastic you were, and then having a look at, okay, now I need to rest and next phase, because then I'm going to do it all over again and have, the same results. So as you move through your own transitions, you can, as I said, look up at the night sky and just know that you're not alone. That's the thing I love about the moon. You're not alone. You can talk to her, I do, and say, oh, g'day, nice to see you out tonight or whatever. I don't know, it sounds a bit woo-woo, but it's a bit of fun, but it's fun on the outside, but what that does, how that nourishes, your spiritual path and things like that, it can't be said enough. It's like a little muscle. You continue to have those conversations, and, that spiritual connection just seems to grow and grow inside you. And, over the months, that follow, you'll begin to feel those things, and you'll begin to see the change in yourself, and, maybe some more calmness, and, some way, you might be dealing with situations better. You might not be, thinking about, those limiting beliefs and things that you had so much. It's just having those conversations with the moon, or just taking in the knowledge that, she's there, makes a difference. So, just remember the moon is your constant companion, and it's whispering ideas at every phase, even the hard ones. It's all necessary. It's beautiful. It's a great way to bring, some sort of spirituality in your life. If you're not sure which path to go on, I would say this is a great start, and then you can continue on from there. So hopefully you'll join us, and we'll sort of get into this a bit more and expand on it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charlene. Even as you were talking about it, one of the things that came to mind, and you spoke to it, like it helps you not feel so alone. one of the things that I always recognize is that when I look at the moon, you look at the same moon. So even though we're across the earth,
Yeah.
we have the same moon. And another thing is it connects me with that sense of ancestry and time. Throughout all time, the moon has really been there and been there for us. And so it just kind of anchors me back into that ancient feminine goddess energy. Like
Yeah.
I enjoy that about going through the cycles of the moon and just seeing that evolve and expand in my life. It's just been a beautiful process for me and something that I did. It was one of the early ways that I started to really expand my spirituality and feel grounded in that. It helped me feel grounded when everything else is changing. It made the change that is constant seem more cyclical and then something that I could work with and something that I could deal with. You could see the patterns, and that was very helpful for me. And now, Charlene, you also have given me and our listeners a wonderful sheet. Tell us a little
Yes.
bit what you've given as a gift.
Yeah, so I thought it'd be interesting for you to, as I said, the moon actually travels through astrology. We have all of our different signs that we have in astrology. There's 12 of them. The moon actually travels through those signs every year. So as part of this cycle, the moon is actually, transitioning through all the different signs. And in fact, the moon actually goes through signs every 2.5 days. So, it moves quite quickly through the astrology chart, and we can get into more of that later, but I won't confuse you. But for right now, the moon phases, so our new moon and our first quarters happen in a particular astrological sign. And what we can get from that is, we know Aquarius and we know Taurus and Leo and all of those different signs, which, we'll get into down the track, have a different influence on the universe as well. And so what we can look at is, so the first one coming up, January 29, we have a new moon in Aquarius. And so what does that mean? For this new moon being the first new moon of the year, for me, is actually the start of the year. So a lot of people make, New Year's resolutions on the 1st of January, but to me, the first new moon of our year is actually when we should start making our resolutions. This, for me, is when our new year begins. And like we said, with our new moon, this is a chance for us to sit down and think about, the things that we want to change. And we've got one coming up on the 29th. So get ready. You can all start with us and we'll begin this sort of journey together for 2025. So our new moon in Aquarius, it actually invites us to embrace innovation and community. So the Aquarius energy encourages us to think outside the box a little bit. And as Michelle already said, this is a great time to connect with like-minded people who will really inspire your growth in those communities. This is a time you want to start beginning those new things for the year and set yourself up for a great new year. The communications. What I want you to do, for this new moon is I want you to, even though before we said, it can be little, this time I want you to really dream big. I want you to write down some big, really audacious goals and beginnings and things that you want, because this is, as I said, the first new moon of the year. We want to take, those first steps towards those really big goals that are going to benefit you and our community. How can you shine your light differently for other people? Like that's what, we're doing now with this podcast, is we're shining our light and our knowledge as part of what we originally, the course that we originally did. It's all about shared wisdom. And that's what we want to do. So now's a great time with this new moon in Aquarius for actually to think about how, maybe how you can be of service to others. Is there things that you can do differently, or what other goals do you have for yourself for the year? And it's great to jot these down in a little journal or something like that, because we're going to go back and have a look at these at the end of the year and say, okay, let's go back now and have a look at our diaries for the 29th of January, new moon in Aquarius. What did you write down? What was it that you wanted to achieve? And how did we go? And how, can we celebrate those things? So so let's have a look at what goals for both yourself, the greater good, the community, how you can help, And what new ideas or, maybe collaborations are calling you? Do you see the same sorts of things popping up all the time, the same groups or a course or something like that? The universe isn't silly. It's going to keep putting it in front of you if it thinks that that's, if the universe believes that's where you should go and that's what's going to bring you joy. What are those things and what new ideas can you bring? So the new moon in Aquarius gives us, the opportunity to do all of those things.
That is wonderful. That's a great place to start. And then each of the other ones, they can just read through and it gives them a different nuance and it gives them a different focus.
Yeah, absolutely. So just quickly, we've got February 5, we have our first quarter moon will be in Taurus. We'll have the full moon in Leo, and that's a really bold, confident sort of energy. So that's a time for like self-expression and celebration. Great time to plan a party or, something like that. And then on the 20th, we have the last quarter moon, which will actually be in Sagittarius. And that gives us energy to reflect and to think back on our wisdom. So it's a time to reassess your journey a little bit. And then February 27, 28, we have a new moon in Pisces. And that is I love new moon in Pisces. It's a really deeply intuitive, dreamy sort of phase. So perfect for setting intentions and connecting to the spiritual and creative side. So how we blend that back in is, when we're talking about the new moon just in the normal phases, how it's a time to set your intentions, understanding what planet that new moon, what astrology sign the new moon is in, gives you a chance to focus around connecting to your spiritual and creative side, as well as I've gone to hone in on a different area of your life every month when we come to the new moons. And we'll talk about those more as we go on. But for now, have a read through that sheet. Michelle's attached it as a PDF, and that's my gift to you guys, just to give you a little bit of information without overwhelming you about how those moons, the new moon and the quarters and the full moon in those different signs actually have a massive influence on your life as well.
I want to thank you so much, Charlene, for doing all of this and for coming and starting this journey with us over 2025 and just how we can use the cycles of the moon to help us in our own transitions and to become the best that we can be, our highest versions of who we are, and just live authentically. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. And hopefully it will resonate with your audience. And, we'd love to get some comments and some feedback about how you think about it and any questions you might have as well. If there's something you're interested in for the future that you would like us to talk about or like me to talk about around the moon. But yeah, just look up at that moon and just know she's there for you. And it does bring a smile to your face.
Thank you so much. For our listeners, I want to thank you so much for showing up today and listening to this episode. Until next time, keep leading with your soul. That wraps up another episode of the Lead with Your Soul podcast. I'm so grateful you chose to spend this time with me. As you navigate your own life transitions, remember to be gentle with yourself and embrace the journey. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe and share it with others who might benefit. Join me next week for more insights and inspiration. Until next time, keep leading with your soul.